Hello, everybody. Grant Hunter here for another Product Growth Leaders topic of the week. Boy, Steve, the news in the past few months in the tech industry has not been the best for workers. A lot of layoffs, and not just in product management, across all aspects of it. And one of our members said, hey, one of the members who had been affected said, hey, could we do a topic of the week talking about how do you bounce back after being fired or let go, right? Because sometimes it's not a fire. For me, fire sort of has a connotation of you were not doing your job and we let you go, where often it's a RIF, a reduction in force or a layoff. Either way, it sucks. I've been there multiple times. So we're going to talk about this. What are you seeing out there?
Well, I'm certainly seeing, a lot of layoffs in the news for sure. But I remember a story from a few years ago. The company just deleted the whole product department. And then 6 months later, they went, oh, now I know what all those product managers do. And they have the audacity to call them back and say, hey, would you return? And they're like, dude, you think I've been unemployed for 6 months?
They bounced back, didn't they?
They did. But I don't know. It's heartrending to feel like not everybody loves me, but it has really nothing to do. In most cases, it has nothing to do with us. It's internal business nonsense.
Yeah.
Not your work. In other words.
I won't go too far down this rabbit trail, but if you look at how much money Google spent on stock buybacks in the past year versus how much money they were cutting salary, you can see where the priorities are sometimes for some of these companies. So
Indeed.
With this in mind, we asked the question on Monday: how do you bounce back from being fired or let go from your product management job? I've been there. It can be the scariest time in my experience. Every time in hindsight, every time I feel like it was something that led me to something better and more. So we put this in there, and Jason Weber, you're challenging Eva and Jason Vincelette with your speed for answering. And you shared something you wrote when you were going through your transition a year or so ago. Do you want to sort of summarize, talk about high level points?
So I did this quickly because I'm passionate about it. This happened to me 2 years ago. That article I published on LinkedIn was right after I found the new role and said, this is what I did. But what I found, if I could pick one thing, there's a lot of things that were in there, but if I could pick one thing, having a support group help you get through it. A support group that is not your spouse, but is other people who are going through it at the time. I had a lot of people. One friend of mine, he always reminded me, you deserve to be happy, because I was about to take any job and I knew I wasn't going to be happy in it, but I needed a job. And he always reminded me, you deserve to be happy. I went through a process with a company. It was like an 8-week interview with, I don't know how many freaking interviews I went through, and I came in second. So I texted my 2 best job seeking buddies, and one of them had called me within 30 seconds of receiving that text, and the other one called about a minute later while I was on with the first one. You can't underestimate the value of that support that you can get from that. It's a hard process to go through, but having other people do it, it's a community. So I'll start with that. I'm sure other people are going to cover a lot of things that things.
No, it is. And that feeling, and I've been there when you send out some texts or emails and the phone rings, it makes you feel not alone, right?
Exactly.
And that's something that happens. It can be such a lonely time. Eva, luckily you have never been in this position, but you shared a pretty good roadmap. And I know it's something that you've stressed about. Talk to me about your approach, how you think you would handle it.
I mean, just to kind of take a step back, no, I've never been laid off or fired. I've been in IT for 20 years, so I'm very lucky. But I was almost homeless in 2005, and I think this is what makes me afraid about being fired or laid off. So if there are rumors at a company that they're not doing good, I usually take the proactive steps to move on, just to protect my own financial health. But I think some of the things that I kind of talked about were maybe finding out what companies and products excite you, and then kind of look at the the job postings in that way. I made the mistake in the past of literally just applying to anything that, like, Jason had said, like any type of position. And I think you get some type of fatigue with that. So just making sure that you actually want to work there and you're interested in the product. And then I think the other thing is, when you finally do get into those interviews, ask them questions. Like, ask them how the engineering team and the product team work together. Ask them how decisions are made. Ask, how transparent you can be on the job, because I think that's where a lot of red flags come in at employers, when you don't realize how things work in product. And then you're kind of like, oh, this isn't a Marty Kagan novel, guys. So, yeah.
No, I think that's great. And I think those red flags are things that Jason sort of alluded to it. There are times I took jobs I shouldn't have. There's times I took jobs where there was a red flag. I mean, not one red flag, 15, 20 red flags. But at some point when you need to pay your mortgage or whatever, you sort of do that. And I think that that's one of my learnings I've had having done it, that you need to sometimes realize that. And if you see the warning signs, not do it. And sometimes when we're in this transition period, it's tough to do that. Mei Wang is not with us this week. She's vacationing in California, but she had a nice list, sort of how the last round went for her. She knew it was coming and didn't know why, so was unhappy. She did a lot of therapy, go through the root causes, because sometimes this boils up more than just the work stuff. Disbelief, you need me, how could you do this? Relief, you mean I don't have to continue the situation? And often when it's happened to me, I've been miserable in that job, right? Sometimes it was the best thing that could happen. Understanding, oh, so you laid me off so you can fund XYZ for the team. Good luck. Moving on, I can do better. And then self-determination. This is why this is what I want. I won't settle. So I thought it was a pretty good framework, thinking about it. Jason, you said you had to go through the healing as well during your role last time.
Yeah.
So
I actually, really quick story. Sorry for taking over. I was interviewing for a job that was very similar to my previous job. I hadn't gotten the role. I was on the final interview. I woke up in the middle of the night, freaked out, like all anxious about this job that I didn't even have yet. That next day, I told him I wasn't interested. So
if you're having nightmares about a job you haven't even started yet, that may be a red flag.
I was going to get the offer too, but oh well.
Yeah. Cory, and then we'll get to everybody as well. I'm just going with the people who had answered on Monday. Cory, you said a few things in mind. Talk us through your few things.
Yeah, so I reiterate the fact that it's probably not about you. There's other bigger concerns, but they don't owe you a job and you don't have to work there. So that's always going to be true. The fact that you are not your job, you are who you are, you have skills, and that can benefit a company or not. But I think the more important one is be prepared, basically. So everybody on this call right now, the next email, the next call you get, you're fired. What do you do? Go ahead and play that game. Go ahead and look and see, what would I do? How much money do I have? Because the two times this has happened to me, the first time I freaked out. And the second time I was not freaked out at all. And that's what allowed me the second time to wait for the right role, or when I found something that I thought I could do. And that took 8 months. So part of it was how long can I survive without a job? I needed to answer that question for me. What kind of job do I want? Exactly what you had said. Is this the type of thing that I want to do or not? I could have been a safe consultant for 5 different companies, and I said no to every one of them because screw that job. Unless it's like, in my head, I had planned that if I don't get anything in a year, then I'll take whatever I can do and just get a good hobby. But the job that you have now is unlikely to be your last one. You are going to have others, whether it's your choice or not your choice. So go ahead and prepare your network, your market, your finance, your mindset every day. And because I'm working in a startup right now, that's part of the mentality, is every day I could be fired. Every day we could run out of money. Every day I could need something else. And to be okay with that is a very different mental space than, oh my God, I need this job. Or like Eva said, I will be homeless or something else. So I would go ahead. The best advice I could offer someone is go ahead and prepare now, like you are being fired today.
I having been through it, it was easier the second time, yeah, but it's still never easy, right? You still have the risk. And
Yep.
Steve, I'm just telling you right now, I do want this to be the last job I ever have. So just so you're aware, I'm in it for the long haul.
Well, don't check your email.
All right, let's get some of the other people in on this question. And I'm gonna start with Joy. Joy, how do you bounce back? What's your take? We've had some conversations.
I have had some conversations. I've had several experiences, and I would say, so I'm going through that currently right now. And I would say right now I'm in a different headspace than I've been in the past. And I think I'll do a shameless plug for Grant and Steve. Part of Product Growth Leaders is Product Leaders in Transition. It's a weekly call, and you bi-weekly, and you're meeting with other people who are in the same boat as you. In the past, Jason said you need a support group, and I'm not sure how I would have found these people if it wasn't for, well, this topic of the week, and also the Product Leaders in Transition. I mentioned headspace. There were occasions in the past where I was too embarrassed to reach out for help because I did take it personally and I didn't want people to know. I was just hoping it would go away and people would never even know, that there was a gap or that I'd been let go or whatnot. So, yeah, I've had a lot. I would say that the support, is definitely needed, and being able to find that support. I love Cory's idea. Be ready every day for that email. You can't sit back on your laurel, you just can't do that. And I've been guilty of that. And I will try not to let that happen again. And I would say too, I've been doing a lot more reading and watching videos, making sure, that I'm following up with the Marty Kagans of the world, and reading different books that are recommended, and attending whatever webinars that I can, and also doing what I can to be more engaged in LinkedIn or blog or product coffee or product camps or whatever I can be involved in. I'll do it. And, that'll just make me more marketable and do more networking.
Awesome. Thank you, Joy. Shaughnessy, let's get you in here. Get some of your takes on how do you bounce back? What's your approach?
Yeah. So I will say twice I have been in a position where I have left a job involuntarily. The first one was a few years ago, and it just turned out that I spent a year there, and it just turned out that the skills weren't a fit. So I did take that pretty personally. I took that one pretty hard. I'd given a lot to it, trying to improve, trying to get the feedback that I needed. And so that one was a really difficult blow for me. And I did also feel very, very anxious. So what folks are talking about of just like the panic of what am I going to do? That there was a lot of that going on. And I ended up, I kind of jumped right into, and I gave myself a little bit of time to have those feelings, and then jumped into practical mode of like, here's my spreadsheet of what am I applying to? What's the status? Just like trying to approach it in a very systematic way, and was able to land on my feet pretty quickly. But what I didn't do was really didn't really give myself a chance or have a chance to have the emotional processing of it, right? What everyone's saying about not taking it personally and not being your job and all of that. I didn't I didn't do that. And I paid for that a couple of years later, as part of like my burnout, which I don't want to, that's a longer story. I brought a lot of that baggage into my stress about my current job. Like the next job after that suffered a lot. I suffered a lot of anxiety and insecurity. So I ended up in therapy. So +1 to whoever it was that said therapy, and I haven't left. And I mean, I really just think that therapy should be considered like preventative care. Like therapy should just be a standard thing that everybody should have access to. I'm very, very fortunate that I have access to it. I recognize that not everybody does. But it was only through a long time in therapy that I started to be able to disconnect my worth from my job, either a job that I lost or a job that I'm in. And remember that I'm, a human being outside of it, that it's, like someone else said, just a set of skills that I bring. And that really equipped me, I think, this time around recently, to weather it a little bit better. I was also very fortunate that I had a very soft landing from the employer who laid me off in December. There's been like time where I could, look for something else in the company. It was more of a restructuring. So I feel very fortunate in that way. I wasn't like some folks were just immediately cut off. And I can imagine
the Slack
that would
no
be
longer
a lot
works.
worse.
You're gone.
And that's how you find out. I can't believe that behavior, right? Of like you don't know. Basically, your badge doesn't work one day, and that's how you find out that you have lost your job. It's so inhumane. So yeah. I mean, as I look for my next thing, which right now I'm planning on waiting a while. I'm doing some consulting and contracting instead to try to just kind of like see if I can do this on my own for a while. But if I decide to go back into another role, looking for that humane behavior, that human-centered ethos as part of the core values of the company, it's going to be a big criteria for me and where I decide to go. So a little long-winded, but that's my experience.
Thank you for sharing, Shaughnessy. Pravin, how about you? Your thoughts?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, I've landed in places a couple of times where, hiring manager hires and then he's gone, like he or she is gone in like 2 months. Then you're like wondering what happened, and it kind of creates like weird situations for you, right? So I've been through those, and I don't know how to even read those situations prior to even taking that role, right? And granted, as you mentioned, sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's the only opportunity you have, like, you have to try it out. But any case, so I think every time this happened, I kind of reflected on the situation, and if I have done honestly like all the right decisions as part of whatever role I was in, and if I've done that, then that's it. I mean, I don't need to feel any guilt, nor do I have to feel anything about like, why I'm in that situation. It's more of a reflection on the business a lot of the times, that also like, culture, business, or whatever else dynamics that might be happening in those organizations, right? But outside of that, like others mentioned, educating myself, reading a lot of things. There are a lot of thought leaders in product on LinkedIn or otherwise. I learn a lot through networking.
It's growing exponentially too. It seems like every month there's an exponential amount of more thought leaders on product management.
Yes. So I am trying to like, tone that down a little bit for myself, because I am like looking at a lot of these things and like, okay, I need to find like a more focused channels through which I'm going to learn. And also I need to not hear the same things, but expand, right? Like beyond what I know. So those are some things I'm trying to figure out. But otherwise, I've seen a lot of support, not just this group here, but a lot of other folks that I've known, ex-colleagues, to like a lot of folks in my network who have all been willing to help and navigate this phase. So very thankful.
Awesome. Thank you, Pravin. Brian Weber, welcome back. I haven't seen you in a while. You're on mute.
Thank you. It has been a while. I would say almost yes to everything everybody said. The support groups, set yourself up, can you get that emergency fund so you're not running out grabbing the first job, all that kind of stuff. But a couple of things. First, when it first happens, do some self-reflections and just say, was there anything I could do? Most likely, no. If Google, what was it, 12,000 people, you can pretty safely say there was nothing I could do. If it's one or two people, maybe there's a little more reflection you should do there and then move on. Always look to say, am I a part of this or not? So just determine that. But then the support group, definitely. I know when this happened to me, it was important even just to go out to lunch with friends and see other people. So much of that is tied to work that you're talking to other people. So sitting in your room trying to find jobs all by yourself 40 hours a week isn't healthy. Find people, go out for coffee, for lunch, whatever it is. Even if they're not related to product management, your field, jobs, just to see other people.
No, I completely agree. And, there's always some self-reflection. Both times I was let go, it was by a CEO who I was a head of product and they were the CEO, and there was a difference in opinion on strategy or something, or they wanted to do the job and not have me do it, right? We were stepping on each other's toes. But there's still self-reflection, because it's like, part of it is, could I have seen this coming? And actually in both cases, I saw it coming and I was ready for it when it happened. But there's always some self-reflection about what could I have done differently. In both of those situations, the first thing I did was I made a list. I grouped them in A, B, C. The A's were people who I wanted to reach out to right away, who I think could help me. B's were people who I just, so taking my networking and sort of prioritizing maybe I could have used IDEA to prioritize, Steve, who I should contact. But I think that's a key thing to be thinking about. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, and
Pamela.
just one other thing.
Sorry.
Thing to add is, which I need to get better as, interview all the time.
Yeah.
There's someone that's in this group, which I won't name the name, but I know he interviews all the time and not even expecting to get the job or take it if it's offered, but just to have those connections and be ready. So if something does happen, you have people to reach out to.
You never know when you're going to find the right job, right? And so interviewing helps you with that. It keeps those skills sharp, but also keeps your networking and growing and that type of stuff. I think that's a great thing. You might not be proactively looking for them, but if they come to you, hell yeah, have a conversation.
Yep.
So, awesome. Pamela.
Yeah, so I was thinking of this story about this guy who calls up the funeral parlor, and he says, I want to postpone my funeral another day, right? And so he basically rebooks his funeral, and then he calls the next day and he rebooks it, because you're always supposed to live as though today was your last. Okay, so that's a general idea. So with that in mind, I guess I must admit there are times when it's come as a surprise and times when it was kind of expected. But in general, I think we should all be thinking about the job and the people and kind of separating those, right? So in other words, if someone gets laid off, even if I don't think they did an amazing job, I will definitely reach out to them and make sure they're part of my network. So in other words, I try and pay it forward before I have to go and say, by the way, can you have coffee with me? Right. Yeah. And I think everybody who said you have to go out and have coffee, like replacing your work network with another network as soon as possible makes you feel good and makes you come across much more effectively in interviews. And so it's a head game, right? Mm-hmm. It really is a head game. You have to look like you don't care really about getting the job, or you're not desperate for that job. And that takes a certain amount of self-control and maybe, Shaughnessy, when you go to therapy, it kind of relaxes you so you can actually be there, right? Because you have to be present. You have to be present in order to get another job, right? And you have to remain in the flow of information as opposed to in the flow of the information, in the flow of the work that you do.
Completely. If I could jump into, and Cory in the chat just said something, like literally took the words right out of my mouth. One of the things that therapy taught me to do, like really do in my emotionally, and not just with my words, is ask myself what's the worst that could happen and really think that through, right? I lose my job. Am I homeless? Am I drained of my savings? Sorry about my cat here. And realizing like, okay, no, I'm a smart person. I have years of experience. I have a safety net. I have a support system. My husband, like all of these things that help me understand, okay, the worst happens tomorrow. The world doesn't come to a screeching halt. The house of cards doesn't fall apart. You have things that you can do. And that really helped me both inside a job when I was afraid of losing that job. And then also when I kind of knew that my layoff was coming. It was
And
huge.
also,
Therapy was big for that.
To take Cory's point, which is there have been times in my life when I didn't have that cushion, and boy, it sure has that hurt. Right. So yeah.
No, I agree. Actually, and Shaughnessy, you made me think about, I don't know if anybody has read Byron Katie's The Work. She has 4 questions, and often when we're going through this type of stress, right, of losing a job or whatever it may be, these are questions that first time somebody introduced them to me in my Vistage group, and the first time I read it, I'm like, oh, wow. And the questions are simple. Is it true? You have something in your mind that you're blaming yourself for why you were fired or whatever it may be. Is it true? Second question is, can you absolutely know that it's true? The third question is, how do you react when you believe that thought? And the fourth is, who would you be without that thought? And it's really, our minds start going, we start building things in our heads that, blaming ourselves, blaming other people. And it was just a great way for me to let go. So I echo the therapy, I echo what the worst could happen. Pamela, thank you for that. Before we move to the poll, we've had a great conversation. Some people haven't spoken for a while. I want to give anybody a chance on any thoughts that have come up since then, or if we can move to the poll otherwise. I'll take that silence as we move to the poll.
I did have one comment, which is the thing that I concentrate on is doing a good job today. And if I do a good job to my standards, then whatever happens, it doesn't matter, right? If I do a good job and they fire me or I'm laid off or whatever, I know I did a good job today. If I didn't do a good job today and they keep me, how do I feel about that, right? Do I feel bad that I didn't give them what I should have, that I was capable or whatever? But I like the notion of just every day, did I do a good job today? Do I feel good about how I performed in my job today? And then whatever happens after that is outside of my control.
You can only control what you can control. Isn't that one of the things we're taught long on, right? I think that was something I got from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? Only you can control your emotions and how you react to something. And
you control your effort, you control your behaviors, you control your language. Everything else.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. Awesome. So on Wednesday, we put the poll in. How can we best support product management professionals who have been fired or let go? Help them with networking, empathize and support them, identify opportunities that may be a fit, help them with the resume and interview prep, or other, it depends. I'm going to start, Eva, with you. You had chosen identify opportunities that may be a fit, which came with about 14%.
Yeah, I think, all of them are great, but I think kind of showing someone a JD where they might possibly be a good fit, where say if they were working on APIs and a position in their company opened up as like an API or more of a technical type PM, that might be a good fit. I think a lot of times I see when people have been laid off and then all these people respond and say, oh, take a look at my company. And they just send, www.com/career page. And that can be really overbearing, overwhelming. For someone to like just look at hundreds of job postings on a career page. I think this kind of goes one step further and says, hey, I know for a fact that this individual is hiring for this position, and I know you have this skill set. Here you go. And you're kind of giving them a silver platter. So I feel like that goes a step further than all the other items, especially, with being in a layoff situation.
No, that idea of that extra step, right? It's not just like sending them 100 listings, right? They're doing that already. We have to realize that it's the bespoke nature of it. When you see or find those that are very, very look like they could be good fits, and I'll say I voted for empathize and support. We'll get to that as well. But part of that action of helping them and doing it, especially in that sort of very personal way that you talked about it, shows them the empathy and the support, because it shows you that you're caring about them. I love the way you frame that, Eva. Thank you. Jason Weber. It doesn't surprise me you went with networking.
Well, so when I first lost my job, I sucked at it. I had completely let my professional network go to seed, so to speak, and I had to redo it. And I found my job through my network in a completely unexpected way, and it happened very quickly. I went from first contact to job offer in less than 2.5 weeks. And so to me, it's such a key piece of it. And if somebody's struggling with it, that's one of the best things you can do. All of them are good things. But to me, it helped me find the job. And so it was something, and you can't be a very close, supporter of everybody. You find people kind of randomly sometimes, but you definitely can help people with networking, even if you've never met them before. So
let me add, what's the thing? Is it Lunch Club or something? Didn't you use?
Lunch Club is one of them. That I think is how Pravin and I met a few weeks ago. And yeah, Lunch Club is a thing where you put in your interests and you can sign up for weekly, however many you want. Tracy was using it for a while, and you get just randomly paired with other professionals. And for the most part, they're fun conversations. I've had some great ones. Occasionally you get somebody who sells you something or wants to sell you something or whatever, but for the most part, you get some really good conversations with people you would have never ever met before. So I do recommend Lunch Club.
I knew you had participated in that, and actually I thought Pravin had come through that.
Yeah,
as the connection had come through that as well. So I wanted to make sure people were aware of that. Joy, I'm looking at you right now. You voted other, it depends. And I'm thinking this is the one I could have done all of the above, because as everybody said, these are all important. Is that why you went with other?
But I think you said, Joy, I think you chose other, it depends, because you want to say all of the above. And if that's what you said, that is the case.
It is.
I know you're supposed to pick, you're supposed to pick the most important. And so if, hands to the fire, if you ask me to choose the most important, I'm going to say help with interview and resume. And the reason I say that is during one of the product leaders in transition calls, the biweekly calls, there were 2 recommendations that have been eye-opening, life-changing. One of them was the book Nailed It, not the cooking show. There's a book called Nailed It, How to Nail the Interviews. And as I read it, it was gripping. I don't know how I ever got a job. Any job I've gotten in the past was a fluke, because I have been a terrible, terrible, terrible interviewer. I was just aghast. So Nailed It, read it front to back, in one read. I was just couldn't believe it. And the other recommendation that was made was ChatGPT. I'm obsessed with it. So you get onto ChatGPT, you copy and paste a job description and say, what interview questions can I expect for this job based on this job description? And it will give you amazing questions. And then I'll take each question that ChatGPT has given me and said, how should I respond to this interview question when asked in an interview? And it gives amazing answers. Now, maybe I shouldn't admit that. Maybe I shouldn't give away that little tip, but it's been fantastic because it'll recommend something and I'll be like, that's such a better answer than I would have given. I would have just said, no, I don't have experience with mobile, or, like, oh, that's what they meant. I didn't even like read it correctly. I mean, those two things, I took a lot of notes from the book, nailed it, and I keep going over them again and again and again. I've rehearsed and memorized the final closing question. And Chat GPT, seriously, every job description, I'm running through Chat GPT now to see what they're looking for.
Wow, great. Some great advice there. Cory, I'm going to get your take on the empathize and support. I sort of gave mine a little.
So I have a phrase that is first of mind whenever I'm in any kind of coaching, advice, support type, whenever anybody asks me something, is I do not want to inflict help. And I several times in the past have inflicted my help. What you ought to do is this, this, and this. And really what I need to do is, what type of assistance can I offer? What do you need? You might need networking. You might need resume help. You might need somebody just to bitch and moan and say, it sucks when this happens. If I'm there to support you and listen to what you need as somebody who's been fired or somebody who's worried about being fired, it's up to you to decide what help you need. It's not up to me to decide what help to offer you. Once you decide what help you really want today, then I can see about assisting you or helping you or offering you advice or reviewing your resume or networking with you or whatever. But that has to come from the person that needs the help, not the person that's inflicting help on somebody else.
I love that. And that's not just in this situation. My wife and I just were having the same conversation about our kids, right? Sometimes our kids don't want us to solve the problems. Sometimes they just want us to listen to them.
Yeah. And the phrase that I use
it's hard.
The phrase that has helped me, other than just the mindset of, am I inflicting help or whatever else, is how can I be of assistance? What would you like me to do? It's one of those clean language questions of, what would you like to have happen? Okay, you want to talk to me? Great. What would you like to have happen? Well, I'd like you to review my resume and give me some pointers. Cool. Let's do that. Or what would you like to have happen? I just need somebody to listen while we eat fatty foods. Cool. I'm there for that too.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, Cory. Pravin, had you voted, or if not, what would you vote for?
I don't think I voted on this, but I think it depends too on the person and where they are in terms of the situation. But a lot of the times, I think it's making sure they are connecting to the right folks in terms of networking. And if there is not an opportunity, at least not in the short term, but at least it will help them move towards that, right? And sometimes I've found that through networking, you learn about opportunities that are not posted yet. They're thinking about it, but they have not posted it yet. So that, I think, is a great place to be, to learn of such things. And I think the second one, empathize, is important, especially if it is the first time somebody is experiencing this kind of situation. It is going to be very, very hard because they will be questioning everything. I went through that process years ago. And you're like, why are you in that situation? Did I do something seriously wrong? Or like, what's, all kinds of things, right? And it's, you just need to help them get past that and then focus on things that will move towards the opportunities. Right. So that's been my approach, at least.
No, I completely agree. And I think that empathize and support almost becomes a triage question, right? we can start there and we're going. Shaughnessy, I'm going to, just because you put in the chat, right? How can I support you? Are you empathizing or problem solving? Yeah, it does work in this context and in relationships and such. What did you vote? Or if not, what would you vote for?
I did not vote, didn't get a chance, but I definitely would have been in the empathize and support them camp. I think that, I mean, at least in my experience, chiefly that's the first thing I need, is just somebody to honor where I am emotionally and let me have that. And sometimes getting too fast into the problem solving, kind of takes away a really, really important opportunity for just processing. And so I think that's the most important. But part of how, you know, supporting them is asking what they need. Maybe they don't need, maybe they do need resume help or an intro or something, but like asking is, I think, the most effective way to get at that.
Awesome. Thank you. Brian.
I
Did you
built off
vote?
of, I did not vote, but I would have built off of Cory and Joy and kind of cheat the empathize and support. The support is all of the above, whatever you
Yeah.
need.
Yeah, it is. It's, you know, as I said, this is a close to all the above, but then the poll would have been all of the above. And I couldn't have these great conversations. Pamela.
I didn't vote, and my first thought when I looked at this was offer interview and resume support, because that's kind of what I usually do. That said, there is that precursor step, which is, what do you really need? Sometimes people just need to talk, and other times, like yesterday, somebody was going for a job interview and I was like, talk to me, right? So it really, really depends. It turns out that I went through a rather structured program locally on how do you do your LinkedIn profile, how do you do other things. And so I've started helping other people with that, because it comes up very often, especially people early in their careers. Their LinkedIn profiles are terrible. Their resumes are awful. They don't know how to explain what they're doing, and they certainly don't know how to interview. So I offer it kind of as a charitable contribution to the world, if you like. But ultimately you can't force what you offer down people's throat. If they feel like they're fine, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be a nice shoulder to talk to, or someone to go have coffee with, commiserate with.
No, I completely and totally get it. And I think always hard to put these things in. It always seems like they all roll together. And it's probably all of them we should be doing, and we should be there for that. So let's move to our first Friday question. What's the hardest part of being fired or let go from your product management job? And I'm actually going to start with Eva. You know, luckily you haven't been there yet, you know, but I know it's something that's been in your head. What would the hardest part be?
I mean, honestly, and I'm very transparent in this group, realizing that it is being recorded. If you look at my LinkedIn, my employer history looks like a rainbow right now. And I think it's just because I left positions that weren't good fits for me. I left companies that weren't culturally good fits for me. That's not saying anything positive or negative, but my biggest fear is I've only been in product for 18 months. And if I were laid off tomorrow, and someone saw that I didn't really have a lot of longevity between, 2021 to today, I feel like that's going to hurt me. And that is honestly what scares me and keeps me up at night. Frankly, I'm not one of those people that have spent a decade at a company. I think my longest job was like 3 or 4 years. So yeah, that
my
scares me.
longest job was 2.5, 3 years. My average job was 12 to 18 months. So I think that's more acceptable now, but yeah, I can understand, especially new into the role, into the industry, the fact that this is a tough thing, and the hardest part is thinking if people are going to look past that to do that.
Yeah, 3 to 4 years right now is a long time.
And I will also say, Eva, the continuing education, and I know that you're finishing your master's. Is it master's soon? That's all stuff that people look past the years and see that the continual growth that's going on there. So you're doing all the right stuff. I understand the frustration of it, because when we don't have control, it gets tough. But I think you're in a strong position, and you've done a great job putting yourself there. So my 2 cents. Steve, you've been quiet.
Here, I'm just absorbing it all. I think the hardest part of being let go is just the eroding of your confidence. And, doing some of the things that we've talked about in this call of networking and finding a support group and maybe finding a therapist to just say, you're still a good person. It just wasn't a good fit. Or, gosh, those guys were idiots to let you go, So I think that would be the big issue. And I remember forever ago, I read a book called Die Broke by a guy named Pollan. And it was a 4-part investment strategy, really. But one of his key ideas is you're a free agent. So the first idea was, don't have a big inheritance. Give your money away while you can still enjoy your kids having it. But the second one was quit today. Consider yourself a free agent, because you are. And somebody else's suggestion here I thought was brilliant is interview every year, whether you need the job or not. You may find out there's a better job across the street, or you may find out you're in a pretty good position, so you should shut your yap. But either way, you can keep your interviewing skills current. And then the other one that I like a lot is, I think it's a book name, is Dig the Well Before You're Thirsty. Network now while you're employed. There's one person in my life who I otherwise really like, except the only time I talk to her is when she's looking for a job. Every 3 years, she's like, hey, let's get together. And I'm like, oh, did you lose your job? She's like, oh yeah, yeah, I'm kind of rebooting my network. So
yeah,
I think it's all about the emotion and support.
I agree from my experience. I want to get to the other Friday question before we get to the lightning round. Any other thoughts on this one before we move on?
So my initial thought was your mindset, changing it, but it's the answer. I as somebody was talking, I think Eva was talking, the question in my mind formed of what's next. So the minute it happens, thinking to yourself, what's next? And is it my fault? What do I need to do today, next, within the next 5 minutes to stop, thinking bad thoughts or start having positive thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'm going to use that as a transition to the next question. I want to try to bring in some of the people who didn't answer that first question. How can you keep a positive outlook when going through the transition? Joy. And it is because the name fits with this question.
Thank you for that. How can you keep a positive outlook when going through a transition? So I guess I would just reiterate what I've said before and what others have said before. Have a support network. Know that you're not alone. I mean, it sounds like almost every person on this call has been involuntarily let go, however, whatever that is, being laid off or a RIF or, being fired. You're not alone. And that, there are things that you can do, read books, get a network, practice your interviewing, reach out to people. So I think just keeping, maybe even having a mantra, like, I will get through this, this will end, there is light, and it's going to be okay.
I love that. Thank you, Joy. Shaughnessy.
Yeah, I mean, how can you keep? I have. I'm not going to reiterate. I don't want to be a broken record about the therapy thing, but I think that being able to, and I know this is a luxury too, but to whatever extent that you can, being able to use the time, in addition to searching for your next thing, also recuperating and resting and doing some creative pursuits, things that sort of ground you in being a human being first, spending time with your family, whatever that might be. I think all that stuff is really important for your health, and I don't think that you can really have a healthy job search or even a healthy start to your job without caretaking on that side. So for me, that's been really enriching and has helped.
Awesome. Thank you. Brian.
I'd say first thing do, call up Cory, eat some fat, greasy food with him. Do some reflection, and after you've had that reflection and that downtime, get busy. Don't like, I agree with Shaughnessy that you need that downtime, the reflection and stuff, but don't let it go on too far. You'll get in your own head. And so I say, get busy, start networking, start having those lunches and coffee, and start applying to things and talking to people.
Pamela?
I kind of am going to take Brian's comment and add to it, which is, yes, you want to be moving, and there are going to be days when all you want to do is vegetate on the sofa and read a book. And so you have to also give yourself that space to feel the pain, to kind of just check out for a little while before you dive back in. So be kind to yourself.
We do have to be kind to ourselves, think about ourselves. Sometimes we can be very hard. Cory?
I want to build on Pam's answer because it gave me an idea, which is limit the amount of time you feel sorry for yourself or you feel mad at the world. Take 20 minutes, scream into a pillow, whatever it is, go work out, whatever, eat a cheeseburger, whatever it is. And then say, okay, I'm going to feel sorry about this, and I'm going to think that this sucks for 20 minutes, and then I'm going to go do something else. Whatever the something else, if it's watch a movie, apply for jobs, veg on the couch, whatever it is, limit the amount of time that this infects your brain with negative thoughts.
There is this technique of writing 3 pages in the morning, which I usually get to about 7 o'clock at night, to be fair. But it's a way of kind of doing a brain dump of all the kind of things that are cluttering up your head and worrying you. So if you find that you end up in this worrying mode, see if you can like get it out there.
That is a really good suggestion, because I resisted the urge to journal for so long. I had coaches tell me, you should journal. Journaling is helpful. And I'm like, yeah, it's not for me. But what I realized is journaling is for you. It is to get the thoughts out of your head and get them into paper. Even if nobody else reads it, you put that thought into the world and made it real, instead of sitting there at night at 1:30 in the morning going, this idea is still bouncing around my head. I found that if I get ideas out of my head that are bothering me, if I at least write them down, there's a great app called Penzo that I do digital journaling in. But if I actually get it out of my head, then I don't think about it as much anymore. And it's so freeing to be able to come back to it and go, what did I think about that? Now that I've forgotten it, because it's not in my head, I can think about other things.
No, I love that. And, I'm going to say, Ted Lasso, what animal has the shortest memory? Goldfish, right? Sometimes we need to forget about some of the stuff, have a short memory, and move forward. I do want to get us to the lightning round, and it does need to be lightning. We've got a big group and we're pushing on time. In a word or short phrase, how does a community help in these times when we're going through this transition? Brian Weber.
I would say everything you had in your poll, a community can help you with.
Everything in the poll. Awesome. Joy.
One word response is support.
Support. I love it. Pravin.
Network.
Network. Awesome. Shaughnessy.
I think a community takes you outside of yourself, and often looking at a way that you can help others in the community is a really fast way to sort of detach from the ruminating that can happen.
I love that. I love that. Cory.
Support.
And come on, no? Okay. Support.
Good support. How's that?
Good support.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Pam, I'll go to you. Pamela.
Oh, I'd say it's a variation on support. It says feeling connected, because that's we lose the day in, day out of being connected with other people, and having a community replaces that real quick.
I love it. Eva.
Yeah, I just think at the end of the day, having someone to talk to about life in general, not to have like a sad story, but I'm estranged from my family, and there's days that I go without talking to anybody. So I think it's it's important for mental health.
Yeah, I love it.
Eva, I hate to tell you this, but I'm the lady who I'm the weird one who talks to the grocery checkout clerks. So there's a solution.
You're not the only one on this call, Pamela.
Oh, good. It's a shared experience.
Yeah, completely. Steve.
All the things that people have said, plus belonging.
I was going to go there. I'm going to say inclusion. And wow, what a great call. This is a hard time for a lot of people, right? This is, some of the biggest factors in our lives, biggest impact. And we try to be strong for our families and for those of us who have kids, for our kids. And sometimes I know I put a lot of stress on myself. And so thank you for the idea for this call, for this topic. You know who I'm talking to. And thank you for everybody for their insight on, how do we bounce back? How can we best support, talking about what's hard. And finally, how do we keep a positive outlook in the power of this community in all communities for this? So Jason and Eva already left. Brian, Shaughnessy, Pamela, Cory, Pravin, Joy, my friend Steve, thank you so much for this very valuable conversation. Shaughnessy and Pravin, hopefully you like what you participated in, and we'll see you guys again. And we do this every week. Monday, the question goes in the community. Wednesday, we have a poll, and Friday, we have these impactful, powerful calls. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week in the community. Have a great weekend, everybody.